Welcome to Author's Corner. This is an extension of Brilliant Minds and Beautiful Souls. I'm Tess Booker. Here is the living library where authors, publishers, and conscious creators come together to amplify the meaningful stories, both fiction and nonfiction voices, sharing not just what was written, but why it mattered enough to be told. If you enjoy meaningful conversations behind the books you love or may want to discover, welcome. We're glad you're here. Denise, we have been in so many cool discussions over these last few weeks, and I'm so excited that you're going to come in and talk about women in midlife crisis, basically, but really getting to the balance of these hormones. Midlife metabolic flip.
Yes, we're going to flip the script on midlife and menopause because we haven't been told a lot about menopause. The things that we have heard, kind of whispers, have all been really negative. And I think midlife is really a new chapter. It's this, what's next, right? When we were younger, we were going through all sorts of different transitions. We were going through puberty, and then, we were in that phase where we could, our childbearing years. And now at midlife, that part of our life is behind us. But that doesn't mean it's really an end of life. It's a beginning of something very new. And to me, this is exciting. Yes, physiologically, there is stuff happening. Emotionally, there are things happening, right? But along with that, there's so many great things happening. We have more freedom. We have more confidence to say, this is who I am and this is what I want to do. However, society teaches us to keep that inside. And so my goal with the midlife metabolic flip is to show women that they can control, manage the symptoms of menopause, emotional, physical, all of those things, and still grow as a person and learn new things and experience things in a very different way.
I know. That's why I love this show, because we want to experience things in a way different way and to feel natural and feel like ourselves. And before we even dive into this metabolic flip, I want to tell people who you are.
Oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Hi, everyone.
Midlife coach that really deals with this. Primarily, I think what I've heard from you is in that functional space of the healthy living, happy life. You actually have a book called Healthy Living and Happy Life.
I do.
And it's a bestseller. And let's just continue this conversation when someone is in this midlife hormonal crazy imbalance. The society is telling us how to do this, and we're walking into our doctors and we're confused, and there's so much information. That's this rabbit trail I want to dive down with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of gurus out there who really don't have the background and the experience. So I call myself the menopause mentor for a reason. Two reasons. Number one, I did not have one. I would have loved one. But I have literally 17 years of experience. I started with perimenopause at a younger age. I was in my later 30s. So I've done the research. I've tried all the supplements and all the programs and platforms and all the things that they keep telling you that you're supposed to do. And I know what works and what doesn't work. The beautiful thing about what works and what doesn't work is it can be so simple. And this is actually the premise of the book, Healthy Living, Happy Life. It's 3 simple things. Eat real food. That's nutrition. Make good decisions. This is kind of where we're stuck because we need good information and knowledge so we can make good decisions. And then the last piece is be accountable, that personal accountability that we need to have for ourselves first and foremost, because we've spent most of our lives focused outward on everyone else.
I love this integration. While we can have that knowledge, you're addressing that it's very personal and that it's you being accountable to you. I think we're going to get a little bit more some educational things, inspired action that comes about because you find something that you're really happy about hearing. And then just
Absolutely.
take the next step.
It's the accountability piece, right? Sometimes we gather all this information and, we have stacks of books that we're got to read, but then we finish the book or take the supplement or buy the supplement and then we don't take it or we don't do anything with the education. And that's the piece, that accountability piece, where we have to actually take it upon ourselves because we're the only ones that can make any change in our own lives. That's where the accountability piece comes in.
Yeah, and listening to episodes day after day, and you're absorbing the information, right? I'm excited to have people share their expertise, but more excited that people will take what you need to take from this and then go do something with it. So we're going to move into this simple place where we get stuck in the knowledge about this pre-menopause, post-menopause, in the middle of menopause, like this menopausal chaos that has left us so crazy.
Yeah. And we do feel crazy through this. Well, let me just kind of backtrack. What is menopause? So most of us start to experience symptoms in our 40s. As I said, I started in my later 30s. And it's things like maybe mood is a little off. You're not sleeping as well as you used to. Just things are just starting to change. And we chalk it up to, I'm stressed, the kids are busy, everything's going on. My husband's got this new job, mom's in the hospital because she had this, whatever happened to mom. So she's you're taking care of that, all these people, again, that outward stuff, right? And not realize that these things that are actually happening, that you're actually feeling, are part of menopause, right? We blame it on something else, or we chalk it up to something else. So perimenopausal symptoms can start in your 40s, typically. And some people don't experience anything for a while. Other people kind of go, something's not quite right. They go to a doctor and the doctor's like, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be anything else. So here's an antidepressant, right? So that's not incredibly helpful. So again, perimenopause starts in your 40s. Now, what exactly is menopause? Menopause is one day in your life. This is the crazy thing. We talk about menopause, but when we talk about it, we're really talking about the phases. So menopause is the 12th anniversary of your last menstrual cycle. Okay, one day. The very next day, you're postmenopausal. And we all think, then we're postmenopausal, it's all going to be hunky-dory and good. And it's not, right? Why? If we haven't managed our symptoms, right? Physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, physiological symptoms, spiritual symptoms, right? A lot of times this is a time where women start to question who they are, why they're here, what their purpose is. So it really is this continuum. That's menopause, perimenopause through to postmenopause. And I want to remind people that postmenopause is the rest of your life. So the information that we get or don't get at a younger age, can affect us down the road into our 60s, 70s, 80s. And beyond.
And beyond. Denise, you said it so simply. And why is this so relevant to me right now? I'm listening to you is because I'm about 2 days away from my post-menopausal day. Like, woohoo! I have it on my calendar in 2 days. And last year, this is so crazy. Last year, I made it to the day before and started again. So I'm hoping it's better this time. But I think
our bodies mess with us, don't they?
Yes, my body is messing with me. And I think that needs to be okay. And I've had to really just embrace the process because it's not fun when you don't have control of your breaking into hot sweats, and it's happening in the worst time ever in the grocery store or wherever you're sitting I'm in an interview, or whatever you're doing, right? It's not fun to not be in control of what's going on in the body, but I think that I've learned to embrace it. And I think you're right I didn't get a lot of information, right? And when I started just being open to that information and not being so afraid of it, and really opening myself up to what is actually going on, where do I want to be after postmenopause? Is my life end because you can't have children anymore? Does everything have to end because your body decides it's not, right, doing what you imagined it to be doing?
Right. And think of this one. Think about the women like me who didn't have children.
Right.
So
another thing.
There's a whole different thing. And actually, by not having children, that may actually have been one of the things that kind of pushed me into perimenopause a little bit earlier. Because think about it. When you're pregnant, you don't have a period for a long period of time. If you have one child, two children, three children, you're extending that, right? Those an extra couple of years. I mean, potentially 5 years, right? So,
well, there's a lot of layers to this. It's not just a woman going through this change. It's all of your life that has led you to this. Like, I know I didn't start my period till way late in life. How did that affect my menopause? I don't know. But if you're an athlete, if you've had children, if you've not had children, if you're eating well, if you're not eating well, if you're like, all those things affect your premenopausal.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what you're bringing to my attention is there's a lot of things that come that happen to get you to there, right?
It's incredibly individualized. You hit the nail on the head. It's all of these things. It's the nutrition. It's the movement. It's the sleep. It's the stress. It's, did you have kids or not? What was your relationship with food when you were young? I know a lot of athletes when they were young were super duper skinny. And I know this happens with many gymnasts. Like they don't get their period for many, many years. Like, typically a girl would be 12 to 14. And a lot of these young women, aren't getting their periods until they're 16, 17, 18 years old.
Oh, that was me. I was graduating from high school into college before starting my period because of the athletic piece, right? It delayed everything. And so I don't know how that affected my, the menopausal thing, but do we think of those things? That's what is occurring. Like all the things that you've done, right, affect it.
Absolutely. And we all think we're the same. We're women. We're not the same. We have different backgrounds, where some of us are tall, some of us are, short. Right. I'm a petite person. I'm 5 foot tall. If I'm, 5'2", if I poof my hair up, right. Depending on your family history. I learned at one point I was already experiencing menopausal symptoms. I was probably in my early 40s at this point, only to learn that my cousin on my mother's side had gone into early menopause at like 32, 33. Well, shoot, it would have been helpful for me if I had known that, because that would have been a piece of information I could have taken and used to understand, okay, well, if that happened, that's on my mom's side of the family. Okay. Once I started to notice symptoms, I could have instantly gone, oh, hold on, this may be perimenopause. Instead of going to the doctor and having him, kind of blow me off and say, oh, it's a phase, you'll be fine. Yes, it is a phase, but it's a long phase, right? The menopausal phase. It could be 10, 15 years, right? So any knowledge that we can gain ahead of time is going to help us recognize menopausal symptoms. And then once we recognize them and see them for what they are, then we can take steps to alleviate some of them, right? It's amazing how diet and exercise can help with hot flashes, right? Silly things like making the room a little bit cooler. Those are things that we can do. Now, are there supplements? Of course there are. There are different teas and tinctures that are fantastic, right? I was lucky after about 3 years of kind of struggling. I had hot flashes, then I didn't. I wasn't sleeping and then I was. So things can be really up and down, like start and stop in the very beginning. But I found a company that had a product, a hormonal hormone balancing product. It's a medical grade supplement. And I took that for 10 years and it was fantastic until my body started changing even more. Right? So
I think that's what had happened to me too, being on all the supplements. And it seemed like it would work up into a point.
Right.
And then there'd be a change and I'd have to shift. And I don't know that my doctors knew how to do that with me. There was a lot that I had to try to research on my own and advocate for myself. I mean, I don't know that there was a lot of people that I knew of that even wanted to talk about menopause because we don't understand it, right?
Yeah. And often, and no blame of their own, most doctors, especially even OBGYNs, they don't know enough about menopause. They're never taught it. They don't go through a menopause program in medical school. And so same thing with our family medicine doctors. We kind of look to them for everything. And our family medicine doctors, they know a little bit about a lot of things, right? So menopause is typically not high on their priority list. That's when they're ready to pass you off on someone else because they just don't know. And the challenge for women is we go to our gynecologist and they're a women doctor. So we expect them to know how to help us. I would say it's getting better. But like I said, my doctor at the time was completely useless. And I had to find information myself. I had to find support. And for me, it was a lot of reading, research, a lot of trial and error. And I will say, like you mentioned, sometimes you find something that works and then it stops working. And then you have to try something new. Your body is changing in many ways. It's a physiological thing. It's happening. All women go through it, but we all go through it differently and in different cycles.
Well, and I appreciate that you've geeked out on it and you have spent your life getting all those details and for a purpose and for a reason. And all of that knowledge and all your experience, I'm hoping we can just spread all this kind of information and get a little bit more clear about things or just have the conversations so people can find you if they want to learn more and to geek out and be with somebody who does know or is being more specialized than just the doctor that studies a little bit of everything, which is awesome. I think it's awesome. There's a place for that.
Oh yeah.
The bigger picture of those doctors that study a little bit of everything and then getting to the specialized doctors, right? What I'm finding though is people are getting so specialized that they're missing the bigger picture now.
Yeah, I would agree. There is a lot of that now.
Yeah, so I love that we're talking about a more holistic space with really specific knowledge. If we could just do that, you got to pay attention to the whole picture, right? Your exercise, what are you eating? What are you thinking about? All those things matter. But then to get to the nitty gritty, like you said, let's get to what menopause really is and what it's actually happening. Right?
Well, what is happening? So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone are declining, right? Progesterone starts declining at age 35. That's why women, when they're, in their later 30s, early 40s, start to have trouble sleeping because progesterone is a calming hormone. Now, we always think estrogen and testosterone and progesterone are fertility hormones. But for women, these are life hormones. Truly, they are. There are over 300 tasks, if you will, that estrogen actually has in the body. There are estrogen receptors literally from your brain to your bladder. So as estrogen starts to decline, obviously we're going to start feeling things differently because those receptors aren't getting the amount of estrogen that they need. So those are declining. On the flip side, we have increased cortisol. Why? Estrogen is cortisol protective. Great. As the estrogen's decreasing and cortisol is increasing. Cortisol is the fight or flight or freeze hormone, right? It helps us when we need to, it's kind of like our survival hormone. And it's great when you're running a race, you're running a 5K and you're almost at the end and you just start running and you go crazy. Your cortisol levels are up and everything's feeling good. But you can't have that level of cortisol all the time. Why? One is literally it's exhausting. And it affects the way we sleep, because if cortisol is high all the time, then the melatonin, which is a calming hormone, helps us to sleep, it's overridden by cortisol. So again, rising cortisol, rising insulin levels. And this is frustrating to most women who will say, I haven't changed my diet, but I'm gaining weight, and potentially that's why insulin is higher, because it's not actually, the pancreas is churning out so much insulin, but there's no place to put it, so to speak. It can't get into the cell. So it's just kind of increasing and running rampant in our body, so to speak.
I love this.
As I said, what else is increasing? Our waistline. When estrogen decreases, the fat distribution that we have kind of goes from a little bit here and a little bit there, a little bit behind your arm, a little bit maybe on your butt, to all right on your belly, right? That's where we start to notice it. So the fat distribution changes and actually increases. Now, part of that could be we're not sleeping. If we're not sleeping, we're hungry, because our ghrelin and leptin hormones, those are the hunger hormone. Ghrelin, I think, remember ghrelin, because I'm hungry. And leptin, the hormone that tells you you're full, those are messed up because of your cortisol levels. So you're eating more. And if you've got kids and you're running around and you have stress and you're not eating a healthful diet, right? You're eating more processed foods, to-go foods, that kind of thing. Insulin level, stomach level, fat level, all of those things are increasing. So we really just kind of have to get off of this roller coaster. We call it a roller coaster. I think it more of as a merry-go-round, right? One thing just hits the other, and you're going round and around in a circle.
Yeah, and you're describing what I understand with the nervous system. When it gets short-circuited, it gets overwhelmed, and it messes with all the hormones. I mean, It's that fight or flight, right? And then if we're staying stressed, now that stress has no way, it becomes chronic, and our bodies aren't meant to be in a chronic state all the time. Right. And so you're talking the same language I am, but on a different scientific level. And it's just like, oh, well, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Why the body, it's so complex and it's so simple. And yet in that complication and that confusion, I don't know if there's one big answer for this, Denise, but what can people do when their hormones are awry like that, going in that circle?
The first thing that I tell people is to recognize what's happening. You're in midlife. Your hormones are unbalanced. Not that they're ever 100% balanced. There's no perfect world here, right? But we need to recognize that and recognize what we're doing that is actually affecting that in a negative way. And that's where I first and foremost turn to nutrition, right? What we eat, what we're putting in our bodies affects our hormones. First and foremost, it's the easiest place to start, right? Look at our diet. What are we eating? Diet being the food we eat, not being on a diet. Okay. Big distinction there. Yeah. Very big distinction. And by focusing more plant forward, I'm not saying be a vegetarian or a vegan, but more whole foods, your fruits and veggies, whole grains, nuts and seeds, beans, legumes, fatty fish for our omega-3s. And lean meat or chicken. Those are things that we can focus on. And when it comes to meat and fish and chicken, we need to know where the product is coming from. Because if we're giving hormones to the meat that we're eating and we're putting different hormones in our body that's already kind of confused with hormones, we're messing with it even more. So first and foremost, awareness, nutrition. If you feel a difference with that, then you're on the right track. We do need to figure out sleep. And there are different As I mentioned, there are different teas, there are different supplements. Magnesium glycinate helps with sleep. Kind of, it has a calming effect. Drinking calming tea before bed. Those changes often help people with stress, and so that helps with sleep more. If sleep is so off that you need something more, then I'm open to that. Right? Whether it's a different supplementation, I actually have through my years of experience and my certifications, I use one particular product or company, and I really appreciate it's called Menoviv, their menopause supplement, because it helps with sleep, it helps with cravings, it helps with hot flashes. So if food and just natural stuff is, just the things that to do, if those are not working and you need that next step, this is where I say, let's look into some supplementation and targeted appropriate supplementation, right? Not just like, oh, let me see what, they're selling on Instagram, because you never know what's in those products. You don't know if, how bioavailable they are, right? If you're taking a supplement and it's not if it's basically going through you, if it's not bioavailable, you've wasted a lot of money. You're basically just flushing it out. And so then, you've wasted money on a supplement. You're thinking the supplement is going to work, but now the supplement isn't working. And so you get into this cycle where, well, then nothing works, right? But you've tried one supplement.
Yeah. And that's when the mindset has to be addressed, and where, if nothing's working, then your body is going, and nothing's working, right? Your body's going to go into alignment back into something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. And so I think, as you try, I love that you're just back at the simple, like first you got to have awareness. Like that's huge. All right, I'm in menopause. And then start to ask the questions of, well, what does it look like for a woman in menopause? What can I change? What can look different? Who do I need to connect to? Where, what is my next step? And what doctors can I have? You just start asking those questions and you'll start getting in your alignments. And I believe those supplements will find you, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
And then as you stay curious and then you're also curious about, what can I eat? What is more plant-based? And don't try to start where you're not. If you've never had a plant-based diet, be kind to yourself, right? And if you've been doing all the other things and they're not working, then you just take the next step. So I love that you're just in this progression of like, we don't have to do trial and error. Like everybody gets the doctor and let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. Like, no, just start in progression of bring the awareness, look at your food, look at how you're sleeping. Are you exercising? The basics.
Right.
And then start adding, right?
Right. And as menopausal women, this is a hard one, especially because those of us that are in our 50s grew up in the 80s where cardio was king, right? Like, oh, let's do aerobics. Right. At this stage in life, weight training, resistance training is absolutely essential. If you're one for, to look good, right, to build muscle, you also don't want to lose muscle because as we're getting older, we're just naturally losing muscle and bone. So weight training really helps to retain the muscle we have, plus build muscle. Muscle burns fat, right?
Yeah.
So if we're struggling with belly fat or whatever, the weight gain, the weight training is going to help with that. So I just want to point that out. One thing that I think is really important when you were talking about like asking the questions and kind of being open-minded, something that I think is essential that most women do not do. We need to talk to our partners, whether it's our husbands, our boyfriends, even our kids. We need to let them know what's going on, because if they know something's off, they don't know what it is.
Say, like, they're already wondering what's wrong. And so if you
they
let
know
them
something's
trail, right? If you let them trail off in their imagination, they'll make it about themselves and they'll take it personal. And then all the things, right? And then the communication barrier gets broken down. And so as you're becoming aware, maybe you're helping your partners become more aware. And maybe it's not so alone.
Exactly. Right. Because then, you can actually manage it together.
Yeah.
right?
And come up with your plan, right?
Right. I mean, I'm always amazed that my husband sent me an email the other day with a book that he thought I would be interested in reading. And I ordered it, we're part, we're in this together, right? If you're married and you have, a partner, whatever, you're in it together, right? Even though you're the one physically, emotionally going through it, guess what? The person who's next to you, they're going through it too. Right? Yeah. They may not be feeling it the way you're feeling it, but they're feeling something.
And leaving them to try to guess what's going on is not probably a good idea, right?
Yeah. It's not fair. It really isn't fair.
Right.
And it's okay to say, I've got to figure this menopause thing out. This is how I'm feeling. I want you to understand that, this is what I'm going through. It's not you. I don't know what to do yet. But let's work on it, let's be open-minded.
Yeah. And you have to be able to know that it's a process. And even if you do eat right and you do do all the right things, it's going to be changing. Your body is going to change because it's inevitable. Yeah. It's happening on the inside and it will happen on the outside. And right. I guess I've learned to embrace that a little bit, and then just taking it in stride,
And there are so many things out there now. Like I said, supplementation is one thing. HRT has come a long way. Hormone therapy has come a long way. Yes, there's still traditional pharmaceutical hormone therapy. There are bioidentical forms of HRT that are plant-derived, right? There are so many different things that we have access to today. And I think it's important to understand with hormone replacement therapy, women of our mother's age were afraid of it, were afraid of HRT because there was one study, it was a poorly designed study, and they kind of lied about some of the results. That scared our mothers because our doctors all of a sudden had this knee-jerk, oh no, we can't give our patients HRT anymore. So that study was done in 2000. Since then, we're now in 2025, close to 2026. That study has been shown that all of the data was wrong, and all of the data moving forward is very positive when it comes to hormone therapy. Why? Estrogen is cardioprotective. It protects your heart. It's bone protective. It protects you against osteoporosis. It is brain protective. It protects you against neurodegenerative disease. That was easy for me to say, like Alzheimer's or dementia. So remember, I mentioned earlier that estrogen has all of these receptors throughout the body. So again, if estrogen is declining, all of these other things are declining at the same time. And so by replacing some of the estrogen that to a level where it's protective again is beneficial for us today, tomorrow, in our 80s, right? We're never going to be 30 again, right? We're never going to have that body again, but we can have the best body, healthful body, right? I'm not talking the way you necessarily look, though we all want to look good, but we can have the best healthy body as possible in our 50s, 60s, and beyond.
Yeah, this is really great information. And yeah, I've really enjoyed the conversation, Denise.
I get so excited.
I know.
Like, there's so much great stuff.
It's because we geek out on these things, and I know it's just like the body is so complex, and I love your expertise. And it's obvious that you understand the hormonal stages and the whole things about menopause that many of us don't. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage, if you have questions, to go to the forum and find Denise there. I'll have all her information there. You can, connect with her if you have menopausal questions or you would like to have somebody speak into that a little bit better. Is there anything else, Denise, that you want to talk about or share before we wrap up this session?
I would like to share, we're calling this segment the Midlife Metabolic Flip. And it is actually it's what I have given the name of my process or my program. I like to think of it more of a process. It is a coaching process with a lot of education, because I think we have to start with education, right? There's the awareness. Now we have the awareness. how do we make those good decisions? We need to get the education. And so that is truly what the midlife metabolic flip is about. It's giving you the information and the steps to feel better and to really understand what you're feeling and what a healthy lifestyle for you actually is.
Yeah. I mean, if we it's the freedom to filter through the information to get what we need personally, right? Like
exactly.
If you have information, you can go, is this for me? Is it relatable? Does it work for me right now? Right? Information is amazing when it comes to making those personalized decisions.
Right.
So
no piece of knowledge goes unused.
Right? Piece of knowledge. Oh, I love it.
I just quoted my husband.
Piece of knowledge. Thank you for that.
No piece of knowledge goes unused.
No piece of knowledge goes unused.
May not be something you use today, but let me tell you, once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. And it may come back to you another time and you'll go, I knew that.
Well, knowledge is one of those things that changes with what you need. It's appropriate. The knowledge comes when you need it, right? That's the piece, P-E-A-C-E, of knowledge, right?
Love it. I love it. The piece, P-E-A-C-E, of knowledge.
And I'll just do a mic drop here. I don't know.
Mic drop. So much, Tess.